All right. Good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone here at the Null channel. All right. So I want to first thank you for joining. It's great to have you here. And if you're here, it's awesome to have you. If you're new here, if you're new to these videos, I do this weekly news, and it's a time for us to hang out, for us to talk about tech, for you to ask questions. So, we actually had a question in the Discord, so we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the stream. And yeah, that's what this is about. I do a lot of other educational content on my YouTube channel, which is a little more long form and whatnot, but feel free to chat, to hang out, and let's talk about the news that went around this last week. That being said, I generally break it down into a cloud section or a security section first, kind of a cloud section next, and then just a general blogs and whatnot section where I just found interesting things that happened, and we talk about those. One last new thing of business before we get in. All opinions expressed today are that of my own. I have not been asked or paid by anybody to say anything, and my views do not represent that of my companies that I've worked for in the past, present, or future. These are just my own thoughts. So if that's good enough for you, let's get started. So starting with security, we had a pretty bad one. And if you run Kubernetes or Linux, and you're worried about security, join my Discord server. I was literally joining my Discord server to post a vulnerability that I found. Like I was logging into it to post a vulnerability that I found, to find that somebody already had posted about the vulnerability. So that being said, join that if you're worried about it. This one is the CVE 2022-24-34-8 Argo CD high security vulnerability. It is a pretty bad one, and if you're running Argo CD, it is important that you are watching this as it unfolds, because it's okay. That was not the link I meant to do. Let's just go find this one. It's a severe bug, and you need to definitely be watching it. So this is a vulnerability found in Argo CD. So I love Argo CD. For those of you who know or have followed me, I do really love GitOps, and Argo CD is one of the leading tools in GitOps, and it has a bug, a security vulnerability. So check it out, read up on it, and see how it affects you. I do try to be light on telling you how to mitigate these things, because this is what your security team should tell you. But go see and research, make sure your security team knows. If you are your security team, make sure you're reading up on this and how to mitigate it. I don't know. I go back and forth, but we'll see. On some brighter news, I guess, for the first time, North Korea got a little dose of its own medicine. A U.S. hacker, I guess, actually reportedly took down North Korea's propaganda sites, which is interesting, because if they had been running on Azure, they would have had protection from DDoS, like we've seen, Azure or GCP. But yet, because they're their propaganda sites and can't be, they were susceptible to DDoS attacks. And so P4X said that he was behind their outages. If you had been following that, they've had outages of their internet. Now, that being said, most North Koreans don't have internet, so this didn't really hurt the people, if that's what you're wondering. It was just their propaganda engines that North Korea runs. So you don't have to worry about that. All right, this came out and is pretty terrifying. Morley is a company that services Fortune 500, the large companies in the U.S. Actually, I don't know if the Fortune 500 is mostly U.S. companies or not. I think it's Fortune 500 is U.S. I don't quote me on that. And if I'm wrong, I'm a dumb American. I thought Fortune 500 was a U.S. thing, but now that I say it, I don't know that it is. So, anyways, Fortune 500, large companies. Anyways, they service those companies, and they've leaked Social Security numbers. So, Social Security numbers are a U.S. thing. So, I'm guessing this is a U.S. thing. So, anyways, you need to make sure if you've been affected by this. I believe it's employees of these Fortune 500. So, if you don't work for a Fortune 500, you probably are fine. But yes, huge leak. And it's kind of something that you have to deal with as your day-to-day life. I actually think in the future that nobody will go without identity theft protection. And we'll actually see identity theft and identity theft protection become more of a, maybe even a government agency, although it probably should be a government agency now that I say that. Who should protect our identity? Should it be ourselves or our government that we're a citizen of? I don't know. I now have to think about that. Do North Koreans have their local network? No, that's what I was saying, Gregory, is most North Koreans don't have internet to access. So when they say that P4X took down North Korea's internet, it's mostly their propaganda sites for externally. Not necessarily internal, because yeah, most don't, and if they do, they're only restricted to North Korea's network. So I don't even think they're allowed access to China's network, which is interesting. All right. Yep. So, anyways. There was more malicious CSV files. This is all goes down to make sure you know what the file you're downloading before you download it. I don't recommend running without antivirus, but I ran without antivirus on Windows for the longest of times, probably for like 10 years, and never got a virus. Not saying I couldn't have, just saying that I was careful. So a lot of it goes down to being careful. But as we saw the other day, you can actually get a virus a lot easier than you might think. All right, Mac malware spreading for 14 months, installs backdoor on infected systems. You know what? With how many times that Mac has had where you don't have to enter a password, I don't really know that you need a backdoor because you just use one of their vulnerabilities on their password. Actually, the password ones usually require physical presence, whereas this is installing a backdoor on the infected Macs. So it's very important that if you do run a Mac, that you do run malware, spyware, detection, and antivirus. It used to be a while ago you could run a Mac and you didn't really have to worry about it as much. Not as many people wrote viruses for it, but as it became more popular, people used to say that it was safer because it had fewer viruses, which it wasn't really the case. It was just not popular. But as it's gained popularity, you've had the unfortunate side effect that now people write viruses and malware for it instead of something else. All right. Yeah. So log4shell, log4j's exploit. Ubiquity, I guess, runs it, and I mean, yes, this makes sense, especially with their reliance on Java. So this makes sense. Anyways, make sure that you're patched. Make sure that you're patched. I know that I generally like Ubiquity networking, and I think it's a really great prosumer choice for networking hardware. But if you're running it, you probably ought to make sure that you're patched, as they have released a patch for it, and so you should be running with the latest and greatest. And that's it for the security. Anybody else see anything over the week? Oh wow, I just can't even drink. Shouldn't do that on stream. All right, I was trying to avoid the microphone and I put it at a weird angle. Shouldn't sit so close to the microphone, I guess is my my sin for the day. All right, so let's move on to the cloud. There wasn't a whole lot. So if you look at AWS and their most recent things that they recommend, you got rotation windows for your secrets manager. You got step functions, add mocking support for testing workflows locally, which this is probably the biggest thing that I saw. And then you have your new X21E ZN instances, which are big cloud instances. But this is actually cool. So if you're actually looking at step functions, which I do think step functions are pretty cool and have a lot of different use cases that you can use. One of the problems before now was the fact that you could not test them locally, and testing locally is so much better so much of the time. And so this is just adding support to let you test and mock them locally. So this, I think, is probably the biggest thing that's happened in the cloud this last week. Google and Azure didn't have a whole lot either. We'll look over them in a second. But yeah, so this is cool. Yeah, step functions, I covered them like a year ago, I guess. Step functions were released and look fairly interesting. We might have to do a video on step functions. Well, challenge. Last week I challenged you all, and not one comment. Not one comment. I challenged you to leave me a comment. I wanted not one comment. So shame on you guys. But come up with an idea for step functions. Something ridiculous, but that would help us learn step functions. And I'll do it. And if you guys don't do anything, don't leave a comment. That's fine. I'll come up with something anyways. All right, so for Google, we have PubSub Lite goes regional, which is good. Regional makes it so that you can split it in a multi-zone replication, and so that's awesome. So PubSub Lite gets a little bit better. They're still doing their 30-day free access to rule-based Google Cloud training. But yeah, whatever. Okay, so premium support for additional compliance benchmarks in their security command center. So that's good. And then their storage transfer service now offers preview support for transfers from self-managed object storage system via user-managed agents. So, anyways, you can copy a whole lot of data in from cloud or on-premise object storage to Google Cloud Storage. So if you're trying to get a lot of storage to Google, it's getting better. On that, I found this, which is that one, I did not realize how much money Google was losing in their GCP battle. Just to give you an example of how hard it is to make a cloud provider and how much it costs. This is what it is. So they did a thing to make it so that their servers last longer, which reduced their costs. But they're still almost burning $1 billion, or yeah, $3.1 billion across the year. $3.1 billion. Whew, okay, I hurt on that note. I hurt. So yeah. Anyways, that's interesting. Azure, as general, didn't have a whole lot going on interesting. This was the only thing that I found interesting, and I only found it interesting not because of Azure Sphere OS, but that they canceled a release. So 22.01 release was canceled, and 22.02 is going to be released in approximately 3 weeks. What I don't understand is the reason they canceled it is that they found a bug in it. But generally, wouldn't you just do a 22.01.01 release? Like, wouldn't you just make a patch release? Isn't that what a patch release? Does Azure not do patch releases? I don't know Azure very well, so maybe they don't do patch release, but they just cancel it. They don't even just delay it until they can I'm not sure. I found this interesting because of that tidbit. So if anybody has the answer to that, let me know. I'd be interested to hear. I'm guessing that they just don't do patch release. I actually don't know what Sphere OS. I should have looked up what Sphere OS is. Huh. 1 second. Googling. You guys can look at my pretty face while I Google. I don't Google live. That can go poorly. I guess probably Googling Azure Sphere OS probably shouldn't go poorly now that I think about it. All right. So, Azure Sphere OS is just a OS for their IoT. So something I have never used. Probably should be more aware of it. Now we're being more aware of it with billions of new devices connected each year. So, Azure Sphere OS. Fun note, as of yesterday, do you guys know how much it would cost to make? I really wanted to make a Ethereum a voting full node, so a staking node. I was like, I really want to make this video. Do you know how much it would cost? Just in the Ethereum? Almost $100,000. And I don't mean almost as like, oh, it would be like 80,000. No, I mean it was like 96,000 for the Ethereum, and that doesn't include the hardware to run that node. Yeah, it was ridiculous. And I don't know why the reason this made me think about it. First, when my blockchain video hits, do you know how many full voting nodes are on the Ethereum network? About 50,000 or about 5,000. About 5,000. And a lot of people claim about their decentralized nature, and that's why like it's so good, but I actually think that would probably break down because Azure has more than 5,000 servers in a data center, a single data center. They have millions of servers. Millions. And so if they actually want to have a 51% attack on a chain, I don't know. Watch it's going to be a month still. I'm working very hard on it, though. This is why some of my other videos are slowing down, because in my spare time, I'm working on that. I'm digging into the very core of it for you guys. So hopefully it will be a good video. I'm spending a lot of time on it. All right, last bit of cloud news. The CNCF archives the project Open Tracing. Now, if you guys are getting confused, not Open Telemetry. Open Telemetry is the thing replacing Open Tracing. Open Tracing was kind of the thing that came first. And Open Telemetry is the thing that, Open Telemetry is the thing that we're going with. So there was this thing called Open Tracing and Open Census, and they're kind of all merging into Open Telemetry. That is to rule the nest of this type of project. So don't worry when you see this. I know that there was some people that were a little confused about Open Tracing and Open Telemetry. They're not sunsetting Open Telemetry, Open Tracing. And you know what? This is actually also some people will be like, oh, this is the death of the CNCF. Actually, I had this argument with an engineer that I respect. His statement was that the Apache Foundation has basically two types of projects. The first type are the ones that are completely core to the base operation of how the internet works. You know, they're just run and used by everyone and are basically completely prevalent throughout our things. And then you have the other ones, which are just sunset projects. And he was stating this as a jab against Apache, that he was obviously a CNCF fanboy, stating that, you know, the CNCF didn't have all of these sunsetted projects. And and that the CNCF was better at incubating projects than the Apache Foundation. And my point here was that knowing when a project isn't worth moving on, or when it has technical challenges that just require a rewrite, and sunsetting those projects is actually the proof of a healthy organization. Now, I'm not a big Java person, so thus most of the things in the Apache Foundation are Java. So I don't do a whole lot there, but I don't think that the Apache Foundation does a bad job at managing their things. Just because you have sunset projects doesn't mean that you're bad at managing those. It actually, I think, shows that they've been around for so long. The Apache Foundation has governed these projects for so long. So, anyways, I don't think this is bad. Nothing to worry about. Open tracing had its problems. OpenTelemetry is here to rule the roost. So yeah, this is good. This is good. All right, if you made it this far into the video, I'm going to ask you to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. But more importantly, hit that like button, leave a comment, engage with the video. That does help other people actually see it. And you know that we have this thing out there. I will make an audio version of this, audio only, for all of you if we hit 100 viewers a week. Now, I do have the limitation that that's 100 viewers a week that actually watch at least 10 minutes. But yeah, we're not that far away. So go ahead, help it get there. All right, let's move on to some interesting things that I found. I found some interesting things around the internet, and we should talk about them. This first one was brought to me by you, the community, so thank you. I actually missed the email myself, and I think that this is a shame. This is actually one of the things of Stack Overflow that I used. Stack Overflow is sunsetting their jobs and developer stories. I cannot tell you how upset I am about this piece of news. Their developer story was how I've done my resume forever. I don't care about a resume. It's very factual for me, and it's not something that I put pretty pictures on or things like that. If you want to hire me, I have a factual a developer story, and yeah, it's getting sunsetted. I think their developer stories are getting sunsetted because they're sunsetting their jobs, which is a shame. I don't know. I've never used their jobs, which is probably why it's getting sunsetted. But I think they could have left their developer stories there. Their developer stories, I found, were quite useful, and I used them all the time. So I wish that they had... I wish that they had left the developer stories and sunset their jobs. But that's not what happened, and thus you should be aware of this. We will have to come up with another way. It was such a convenient way. I guess you could do it with LinkedIn, but LinkedIn wasn't nearly as nice as LinkedIn, the developer stories. It allowed you to like print out a PDF version of it, and it was just really, really useful. So anyways, I'm super sad that this happened, and yeah, I'll stop touching my audio. I keep thinking I'm too light, then I'm too hot. I don't know. Anyways, yes. That's happening. So. All right. Announcing the public launch of Cloudflare's bug bounty program. Blug. I don't know why when I read that I have to say blug. Blug bounty. Bug bounty. Today, Cloudflare is launching their paid public bug bounty program. Cannot say that. We believe that it is a vital part. So, they're releasing it. And yeah. go read about it. If you're a person that's capable of doing this, it's pretty awesome. And by mid-January, they've paid out 211,000 in bounties. So it's gone public, and you should check it out. Yeah, okay, so Gregory has a fantastic point about some Stack Overflow. It's amazingly frustrating, Stack Overflow is, and I'm sure that everyone out there has had this problem. You'll have, like, how to print a string in Python gets a billion rep. And then you'll have this person that says how to fix your C++ compiler with an inline statement that's amazingly complicated, and they get 2 upvotes because you're really upvoting popularity, and the more popular is, the more simpler stuff that a lot of people suffer from. It doesn't necessarily, the rep isn't really. So I actually had a proposal which people didn't like very much that would fix some of this. And that was actually to split out the rep. Stick with me. You split out moderating rep and technical rep. And what I mean by this is generally those two were the same thing. So the more rep that you got for technical questions, the more moderation that you could do. But those people were jerks and horrible moderators. So my thing was that you should be able to get rep for moderation, and you should be able to get rep for technical. And this way, when you go to moderate somebody, it's not based off of your abilities to write C++ in a brilliant way. Nobody cares about that when you're moderating. That was one of the downfalls of Stack Overflow. Those two systems should have been separate. The next comes from judging your reputation based off of answering simple and stupid things. Now, stupid is maybe a harsh thing, but just the simple, everybody knows this, just about everybody could have, you happen to be the first one to see it and answer it. Those questions and answers are super valuable because a lot of people have them. It just doesn't mean that you're specifically talented in any scenario. And generally, the more advanced and harder questions get fewer answers or rep because they require a more senior person to understand, which there are fewer of, which means there's actually more of an incentive to try to answer quickly the simple questions than it is to spend months digging into a problem and solving it. Now, to solve that, I actually have some ideas and we can talk about them, but that is a really hard problem. If you spend a month digging into a problem and helping somebody solve it, and you write a great explanation and then only get 2 upvotes from it, it's very demoralizing. Very demoralizing. And I think that really those should be the ones that get you a ton of rep. How to fix it? Maybe a little bit more difficult. But yeah. Anyways, let's jump into the other stuff. And yeah, we can talk about that. I found this interesting. I found this. Leapfrog. What is Leapfrog? Leapfrog it has 2 hash map implementations. It's basically a faster, more accurate hash map. At least that's what they claim. I haven't actually tested it. They did release benchmarks here, and it looks pretty good. But anyways, yeah, interesting. I love looking into these. So the biggest thing is I actually just want to look into its source, because this is where you can actually learn a bunch of stuff. I'm not suggesting anyone actually implements their own hash map. Maybe I will for a stream or something. But that's only for education to understand how it works. Actually implementing one of these is a lot of work. A lot of work. Man, maybe he should have broken this into a couple of files. I don't know. I don't like... Okay, so maybe this is me being a little picky, and if this is being too picky, let me know. And Go and Rust developers are particularly bad about it. And this is one thing that I love about the Java community. None of these 1,500 line files. Like, let's... What? You know, sometimes I see the need for like a 500 line file where it just makes sense. But can we say that 500 is a pretty good cutoff and we just make a new file? Can we try to hold under 250 lines? I don't know. Am I just being a massive noob when it comes to these languages and that they just work better with massive files? I don't understand the draw to these really massive files. I don't actually think that it helps readability. There are specific times when a massive file is needed, and this sleep map might be one of those. I'm not specifically picking on it. I'm just saying, like, Rust and Go, look at the Kubernetes devs. They're horrible about this. They have massive files of thousands of lines, and I don't know. I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan. But, yeah. Anyhow, let's move on before I say something that angers you guys. Although I don't say it to anger. I say it to bring up a conversation. If you guys disagree with me, I'm really happy to have that disagreement because maybe we can both learn something. I don't like large files because I find them harder to read and harder to go through. I find like large files, people haven't broken the code up as well as they could have in general. And again, sometimes it's better not to break it up more. But generally, I think that you should make that argument if it's going over 250 lines. I'm not breaking it, or maybe 500. I don't know. I haven't come up with a specific amount, but when you hit that threshold, you should make the argument of why breaking it up actually adds confusion. Generally, that's how I feel about it. But again, I bring it up to start a conversation so that if you guys do disagree, it's not that I'm offending you. It's that we can talk about it and we can come down to a agreement. Not an agreement, but we can learn from each other. That's what I meant. All right, so getting back to it. Pretty cool. This is super well documented. So if you wanted to learn about like hash map implementation and what they did differently, the people behind this, or the person, did a really good job. I've only read a little bit over it, but everything is commented well. For those of you who hate comments in code, this is important, especially for something as complicated and as nuanced as a hash map. So definitely check this out. And if you're learning to write Rust like I am, this is a good way to do it. Did I miss this? How did I not know Google made hardware boards? I didn't know. This came into my feed of things. I have some bots that scrape the news for me. And they're like, Merrick, look at this. Merrick, look at this. And I didn't know. Supposedly they're to help at machine learning at the edge. Let me know if you'd like me to get one of these and try it out. I've been debating about whether I do more hardware reviews or not. I have the Mac Pro back there that I haven't, actually the Mac Ultra that I haven't written a review about. I don't know if it's fair because I don't do a whole lot of reviews, so I don't know if that's actually fair to people or not, or if you guys would actually like my opinion. I don't know. Let me know, but I know that you won't because you guys don't leave comments. I know you guys. Anyways, I'm thinking about getting one. It's coming soon. Just see how it does. Supposedly machine learning at the edge. All right. Never fear. My stuff is not going sponsors only. I think that this is actually cool. I don't know that I could ever use it, and I'll explain why. So one of the things that they did was there's GitHub sponsors. You can go on GitHub and sponsor me right now. I did sign up for it. Nobody sponsors me. But you could sponsor me for making the stuff that I do. But now you can do sponsors only repositories. So basically they're private and your sponsorship gives you access. I think that this is really cool, honestly. Now, I don't find that it's useful to me because I want to make sure that all my educational content is freely available so that if it can possibly help somebody, it can. Because I could like put a course content or you know, I could put the source code to, when I did the stupid Kubernetes operators and stuff like that. I could make those repositories sponsor-only repositories, but I want you guys to take those and learn from them. So I don't know that I can use these. So don't worry, I'm not throwing my stuff. It's garbage code anyways, behind a sponsors-only repository. I do think that this gives people like me another opportunity to support themselves. So I think that's really cool. And I'm glad that GitHub is actually taking this initiative to do these things. So yeah, I'm kind of excited about this, even though I don't think I can use it. I'm excited. I'm trying to think of a way I could use it, but I can't. I can't think of a way to use it. So I probably won't use it. All right. This was interesting. So there's always a bunch of controversy when somebody uploads malware to GitHub, because then people are like, oh, you can redistribute it and things like that. What people don't understand is that a GitHub code registry is not all of a sudden going to enable a bunch of script kiddies to even compile the code, let alone launch an attack with the malware. I think a lot of times it actually does a lot of good to the community under certain conditions. Now, if we're talking about a 0 day, absolutely not. This is unacceptable. If it's a 0 day, you let the company know. So if you found a 0 day in Chrome, you let Chrome know, and you let them know that you'll go public with it after 30 days. This gives them a chance to actually fix the bug and have a patch out before the 0 day is released. So there's definitely caveats to this. You need to not be a jerk and a turd. But if you're talking about getting your hands on the malware source code, yeah, this lets researchers and this lets people understand it better. I'm not opposed to hosting malware on GitHub. Now, that being said, does it help distribute it out to people? Possibly. So maybe it's not good. I don't know. We should have a conversation about it. I think that it makes awareness of how it works easy. Now it's also easier to stop, but it could also help somebody learn how to do it. So I don't know that there's a silver bullet or a right or wrong here. I think that's interesting. I think it's an interesting thing. I love when people post exploits, how they exploited log4shell or log4j, J's exploits. Now, again, I think that you should only post those exploits once there's been a patch, because otherwise you're just being nefarious. All right, this was an interesting blog article. At first, I thought I disagreed with the person. Then I thought I completely agreed with the person. And now I've decided that I'm kind of in the middle. They have some very valid points about enums versus Boolean arguments. Now, this being said, they have a very narrow scope of what an enum is. Not every language implements an enum the exact same, and they don't mean the exact same thing. So I don't know that this holds true to every language. But It actually was really informative. It made me think about something I took for granted, and whether I fully agree with them, which I don't think I fully agree with them, I do think they have valid arguments of what clean code should look like. And yeah, I think that they have some very valid arguments of how bad code has been written several times. All right. So I would recommend you read this. They have this thing where it's like, is admin true or false? Is writer true or false? Is curator true or false? Is moderator? I think that this is just poorly architected, poorly developed data structure or code flow. I don't I don't think that this is a reason for an enum. I think that this right here is a problem people struggle with permissions and things like this. Now, again, I think you should read it because it caused me to think. Now, I think that the real problem that they use is the fact that they don't. Some of this is design and system design. And so sometimes I think that they're fighting against bad system design, but sometimes the system design is already there. And another thing is, not all languages implement enums the same way. And so there's actually some really tricky things that you could do with like flags here. And you could do this all with flags and just a single 32-bit integer, which if you're really wanting to do is probably the most efficient way. So anyways, definitely worth a read though. All right, let's move on. GitHub outage. There was an outage. Should have covered this in the security section because an outage is security. Anyways, availability is security. It affected just about everything from actions to code space to issues and pull requests. So it was quite a large outage and a little bit painful. So if you now, if you noticed a couple months ago, we talked about maybe one of Rust had its kind of first big management crisis. Now, I offered to be part of the team that tries to moderate their moderation team because their entire moderation team a couple months quit. And they kind of pointed fingers at the core team but didn't point names. I don't know, but somebody from the core team left. I don't know if it has to do with that. I don't know if it's because they're upset about what happened with that. Have no idea. But I'm wondering if Florian's leaving has something to do with that. I don't know. I've messaged people. I don't have any more information for you, but I know that Florian has been put a lot of effort in this, so I'm sure that he's going to be missed. He was very passionate. I know of Florian's work because I know that I've read stuff that he's written. So I know that he's going to be missed, and yeah, and hopefully he's leaving just because he wants more time, and that's it. Hopefully there's nothing else beyond than that. A really cool GitHub. This should have been. I should group all GitHub. I should group all related things. This should have been under. I know we had one other GitHub topic with their sponsor related things, but there is a update branch button. This is kind of cool. Have you ever like made a pull request, it sat there for a couple of days, and you moved on to other work, and now it needs rebase? But it's a clean rebase. There's literally nothing there. It's a clean rebase. It just needs rebase. So now you have to stash your work that you're working on. You have to switch branches. You have to rebase and force push, and then switch back. There is a new button. There is a new button to solve this. Update rebase branch. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I don't know that I have to say anything more. I don't mind the command line. I use the command line every day, all day. but having it right there is pretty nice. I'm gonna just say that it's pretty nice. All right. Nobody cares about that. This is interesting. There's a new Ubuntu Pro. If you're on Ubuntu, you get it free for 3 machines. Yeah, basically, it looks like it's the Ubuntu Advantage program, but it's a little confusing as to what it is. And basically, if you're on Ubuntu, you'll get a notification. It's basically just upgraded support, better support, like their enterprise support for a consumer. I don't really know why you would get it, but yeah. Anyways. Oh, another GitHub one that wasn't with the rest of the GitHub ones. Anyways, this is the new GitHub Issues. This is just an update on the GitHub Issues and different things that they've added to GitHub Issues. So if you use GitHub Issues, I would definitely check reading this out. I don't actually personally use GitHub Issues except in other people's open source repositories and maybe my own open source repository. But as far as work goes, we don't use GitHub Issues. So I don't have a whole lot of experience with better workflows. Like, we have issues, but this is more like workflow plan. This is like Jira competitor. So yeah. Here's the engineering blog of the week. Now, many of you know that I'm critical of serverless. I'm critical of serverless because I think most of the time it adds work and it adds complexity where it didn't need to be. A lot of times I see these serverless architectures that are more complicated than their other, their others, and just doing it without the serverless. And this is a pretty cool explanation. And this is a pretty cool architecture. And they went through the whole architecture on how they did it, and it was a good read. I think serverless has a purpose and has a use. You need to know it though. It's like Kubernetes has a use, and you need to know it. And if you don't know it, you're bound to do stupid stuff with it. And I think that's what I see with serverless all the time. 1 second, I need to drink and not point at the microphone so I can drink without spilling. So anyways, I actually really like this. Again, I usually discount serverless. I think that it's overused, overappreciated, overhyped. Kind of like Web3. But yeah, anyways, this was really good. It was really good. Kind of made me want to do a video on doing something with serverless. I want to do something fun with serverless. I'm just not a fun person. Like, I don't think of those fun ideas that are just like, oh, look, I built a thing to automatically water my desk plant using serverless. Just came up with that off the top of my head. Microsoft is on a buying spree. They have money, and they're buying up the game industry. Yeah. So I think Sony probably needs to move fast. And I know that they've already started with acquisitions, but probably going to need to move fast. I don't know that anybody on my channel is that big into gaming. I am. Unfortunately, I don't get to do it as much as I wish that I did, but I'm a huge gaming nerd. I'm not good at it. I couldn't stream gaming because nobody would watch that. I'm not even funny. But I do love gaming. All right. And that being said, Google is burning. Nobody could see that. All right, so I have 3 open source projects for you today. They don't follow into a category. They were just 3 open source projects that I found interesting and I wanted to talk to you guys about. So the first is HVM. If you guys don't know, this is high order virtual machine. Basically, this is a highly parallelized language. Anyways, it's a prototype. And I say language maybe a little loosely, but think of it as a purely functional language. It is purely functional, and yeah, it's super fast. Anyways, it's pretty cool to see it versus the GHC, which is kind of the industry standard. It's fast, very, very fast, and they built it in Rust, and all the code is here, which is super cool. I love it. This is how I learned to develop code. I found projects that were interesting. I read them. I saw how they did things. I was like, cool, that's interesting. This is probably how I also picked up all my bad habits. Anyways, I found it as an interesting project. If you're looking into highly parallelized things, HVM is an interesting project. This is an interesting one. This is one that's been in my... It used to be called Firecracker, which was confusing because AWS had a project called Project Firecracker, and that's a VM thing, and Cherry Bomb has nothing to do with VMs. What is Cherry Bomb? It's actually something I was looking into that might empower... basically to validate your API specifications. And so basically it's something that you can use to do that. So it's kind of security, kind of user experience. Definitely a very cool project. So yeah, check it out. And if you're wanting to validate API specifications, this might be very useful for you. And the last project is Coral Preamble. If you guys have used Go, Go has a problem with dependency nightmares. And one of the problems that you might have is Cobra and Viper. Both of them are awesome projects, but Cobra has a ton of... It depends on Viper. And Viper has a ton of dependencies. And so basically, if you write a project that depends on Cobra, you get all of Viper's dependencies. And that can suck. That can really suck. So Coral is just Cobra without the Viper dependencies. And it's supposed to be a light fork. Basically, they're planning on staying up to date, and they're not meant to be like replacing it. So anyways, if you need to depend on Cobra, this might be a really good solution for you. I would say the best solution is don't depend on Cobra, but if you have to for whatever reason, this is interesting. All right, so my last thing, I was asked about my thoughts on clean architecture. Now, this person likes to ask me about 10 minutes before I go live, so it doesn't give me a ton of time to really put my mind around it and formulate a well-thought thing, nor a well-spoken thing. Anyways, but I'll do my best to give you guys my high view of clean architecture. And I'm going to tell you this is my lawyer presentation on clean architecture. My lawyer presentation is basically, and kind of what I do, probably more often than I should, is everything is a tool. Understanding how and when to use that tool is paramount. So that goes to design patterns. I think design patterns are awesome. Some people get too hung up on a single one or only using design patterns, and they make their code look really stupid and dumb by forcing it into this design pattern that they're using. But design patterns are a really good tool. Clean architecture is a really good tool. I don't think that you should force a clean architecture if your project doesn't work that way. It doesn't mean that it's bad, and it doesn't mean... I'm just trying to be clear that I like it. And I think that it has a lot of really good things that you should think about. It makes you think if you really go and try to understand the clean architecture and read the book, which you should. I think it's a good book to read. But my point is you need to read it. You need to understand what problem they're trying to solve, and if that's the problem that you have. If it is, it might be a really effective solution to your problem. If it's not the problem that you have, though, then it can't be an effective solution either. That also being said, generally, all problems are slightly nuanced, and your problem might be slightly different. So just using it, yeah, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Perfectly put. Absolutely. And so this is where I always give my lawyer discretion. I even give it with Kubernetes, which I'm a huge Kubernetes fan. I do so much content with Kubernetes. I do so much education around it. I absolutely love it. But I never want somebody to say, well, Merrick Counts really loves Kubernetes. It must be the tool I need to use. No, that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to empower you with the tools. I want you to understand the tools, and I want to empower you to use them if you deem to. But one of the first steps is understanding the problem that you have, and once you do that, understanding what problems solve that problem, or what solutions there are to solve that problem. Clean Architecture is a fantastic book, and I do recommend reading it. It's up there with The Pragmatic Programmer, although I would probably read that one first. You know what? I'll do a book video. Obviously, designing data-intensive applications is on that book list. But yeah, it's a tool, and it's a good tool. Those are my thoughts. And you know what? A lot of times, and you'll see this in an upcoming video, but you know what? I think that pure functional languages aren't really that useful. With a caveat. They're actually super useful if you learn to program in a pure functional language. I did, and it empowered me to do things and write better paradigms and adopt some of the paradigms in some of my other code. I don't generally write pure object-oriented code anymore. Now, while I don't think that pure functional is a way to write a really large enterprise-grade system, it made me learn a lot about how code works, and it really broadened my horizons on how to solve problems and the availability of other solutions to solve a problem. And this is what understanding clean architecture is going to do. So that's it for my rant on that. But bring up things. We'll have topics. If you guys want to talk about it, bring it up in general. You know what? I have under announcements, I have news. But I'm going to, in the Discord, I'm going to make a channel just for our news. And we can bring up topics to talk about. We can talk about it on Discord. We easily can talk about it there. But if you want to talk about it on the live stream where I can dig a little bit more deep into it, let me know. If you love my thoughts, I'd love to give them to you. Anyways, I want to thank everyone for joining. Everybody that's made it here, I appreciate you probably more than you appreciate me. Thanks for everyone that has been here with me, and thanks for commenting. I will see you guys next week. Have a fantastic week, and look forward to seeing you guys